it's very difficult to achieve authentic healing that sustains without it actually coming from God.
Hey everybody, welcome to Project 167 and our podcast. Today, pumped for our conversation. I am joined with, this is the first guest, this podcast is pretty new, but this is the first guest that is a staff member, a pastor on staff here at Northway. So cool, distinguishing mark. Everybody, this is Mary Mercer. She's our prayer pastor here at Northway. Mary, say hi to everybody.
Hey, everybody.
Yeah.
Great to be here.
Super glad to be here. The honor is the first staff member being on staff and a podcast guest. So does that create pressure or is that fun? What does that feel like for you?
That's all good. I just go, whatever you want, Lord. So I'm happy to be here with you because we chat all the time. And
we do.
We're just doing it here at a table.
That's right. That's right. We really didn't prepare for this because my friendship with Mary is just like natural. It just kind of flows in conversation. So, hey, when I say prayer pastor, that's probably a bit of a different paradigm for people. Mm-hmm. They probably don't understand, or maybe they think this and it's this. So can you unpack that a little bit of what that looks like at Northway?
It was actually new for me too. A few years back, I was just
well played, Mary.
I was feeling like certain things on my heart about prayer and what God was doing, not only here, but in other places. And so just sort of began to ask the Lord, gosh, what does it look like to focus on this part of things for our church? And lo and behold, it's a thing. You know, there are prayer pastors and
we made it a thing.
Prayer directors all over the place. Yeah. Not really all over the place. It's actually pretty unique. So we feel like God's opened a space here and under your direction and leadership to just say, this is a place that we want to lean in. So for me, it looks like, I try to use the phrase building a culture of prayer here at Northway, because sometimes I think prayer is our last resort, you know, instead of our first impulse. And so we want to become a people that bring our stuff before the Lord. Before we do anything else, we want to seek Him. So I think one of the biggest things on my heart is that I want people to see prayer as sort of an overflow of the relationship with God. It's not a transactional, I'm going to ask for a lot of things. I think we put prayer in that bucket a lot. And so how do we become people of prayer? People
prayer
that
is my
seek,
list.
It's
these things I need God to do,
That's right.
or people have asked me to ask God to do. But you're saying it's bigger than that.
It's bigger.
Prayer
That's
is.
part
So
of it.
we're getting right into this. Yeah. Prayer is. Say it again. Say that definition.
So I think
again.
for me, it's just an overflow of the relationship. It's a vehicle to the relationship to build that with God. So God, I'm just going to be with you, and I'm going to whatever is happening with us in the day, whatever conversation we're having, whatever needs are in my heart, they're part of how I do the relationship with God. So when I do transactions, I say, if I pray, this will happen, or I hope it happens.
Or it didn't happen because I didn't pray
or it
long
didn't happen,
enough,
right,
or loud
exactly.
enough. Yeah, okay.
And it's really sort of more about, God, how can I be near you?
So what is that?
You know?
So the magic question, or the $1 million question. We don't believe in magic. We believe in.
Yes.
We do believe in $1
call.
million, though. Yeah.
Rewind the tape.
What does that look like? Because I think we hear these things about prayer, and sometimes there's at least a spark of a longing of, I want that too, but I'm not Mary. I'm not that spiritual. I'm not that in tune. I don't have that much faith, maybe I've heard people say. But so practically, you said like the overflow of your heart and this with God and it's prayer. That's a radically different definition when it comes to prayer, right? Because we are growing up in years of prayer is a list. Prayer is what you do before a meal.
Yes.
Prayer is what you do at the end of a service
Or confess.
or to make a confession, right? There's a little Catholic background. By the way, I have a Catholic question I want to ask.
Okay,
to
I
see
can't
if
wait. This is my dream.
So I'm sorry, I'm laughing. Unpack that a little bit more practically.
Yeah.
What does a day of prayer with God like tangibly look like?
So I think we can get into sort of, these rhythms of life with God. But I also think we can check our boxes in terms of I'm going to have my prayer time or my quiet time. And that's good. Like that's a good
needed
and necessary discipline.
Yeah.
But when it becomes just a thing I'm doing, I'm not really being with God or encountering God or deepening my sense of personal connection with him, then it just becomes like not a growth place in the area of becoming like Jesus. So when I think of prayer, I think, God, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what you're thinking about things.
So do you ask him, do you say those words to him?
I do. I literally spend...
That's what I mean by tangible. Like,
so for me, I'll just share with you some of my prayer spaces, but they're mine.
Yeah.
And I will also say, just in love, I've been walking with God and developing and cultivating this for many years. And I think God also understands that there are different seasons.
Yep.
There are different levels of which you enter into this place. So the expectations aren't do it like this. It's just, this is sort of where I'm at.
This is where he's led you to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, I always find silent time in the morning.
Okay.
This is a really hard culture to be silent in.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of things assaulting us and just sort of taking our attention. And that is a crushing to a soul. And so
all of the noise is crushing to a soul.
The noise.
That's great.
And so I have to find a space where I can bring some peace to that place. So I literally will take, and sometimes I set a timer. No music, no nothing, just 5 to 10 minutes. No news.
No Sports Center.
No, I'm sitting in a chair
iPad.
With just me.
So this feels like 1942.
So I was not around then, so I don't.
Well, I was.
What it might have felt.
I look good for my age.
Yes.
But so, none of that. I'm just trying to imagine what our audience is thinking of and where I'm going to go with this. But sorry, I'm interactive.
I try to create a space where it's similar to me. So I can pray anywhere, but I like to pray in the same sort of spaces because they're set aside for that for me.
Do you have like a chair you sit in?
I have a prayer chair, yeah.
Prayer chair, okay.
I have a prayer chair.
I have a friend who had a prayer closet.
Yeah, yeah.
And she wrote on the walls.
Yeah, like War Room.
Yeah.
So I don't have a closet, but
Okay.
That might be a little confined for me.
You need more wall space to write.
I need a little space to.
Yeah.
But I sit in my office, but in my office in the corner is a prayer chair. So I'm sitting in the chair, and I literally will set my clock timer, my phone timer to 5 to 10 minutes. Usually I try 10.
Okay.
And I just nothing, because I want to give God the first word of the day.
Wow.
Give him dibs. So I just sit still, and there's lots of distractions that will come because we are those people. And
your mind goes to your schedule. Or your husband, or your kids, right? Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I might want to start asking, or I might, whatever.
Food.
God, what do you have to say to me?
Do you have coffee before you do this?
No.
Okay. Okay.
First of all, I never have coffee.
Oh, that's right. By the way, I have a gift for Mary. I've been holding this. I told you about Celsius packets. So
yes,
this is my favorite one. This is the wild berry.
Oh, I'm so excited.
That's yours.
She's
not a coffee person.
We share the dream of Celsius.
I do like Celsius too, yeah.
When I say coffee, I really mean energy drink. So if I'm going to have a coffee with someone, it's going to be
You're bringing an energy
up.
drink. You're bringing a can. Yeah.
Some people think it's weird because they're like, amped up, you do not need any more amped up. And I'm like, let's go.
Yeah.
But I do. The let's go anointing comes from... Anyway, so here I am sitting in my chair, and it's hard. So I just go, a lot of the mystics from like when I used to read a lot of that, they would go, okay, a distraction comes in and I just let it go.
How do you do that?
I say, Jesus, I'm sorry. Here I am thinking about that. I just want to refocus my eyes on you.
So just acknowledge it.
Acknowledge it and
give it to the Lord, ask him for help, and let it go. We over spiritualize some of that sometimes, right? That's a very simple, like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't beat myself up for it because I'm human.
That's good.
But I do physically like refocus some people think I'm not spiritual if I can't do blah, blah. It's not about being spiritual. We're all spiritual. And we all are meant to be in deep relationship with God.
Yes.
It's meant to be
from
personal.
The very beginning.
Very beginning.
Yes.
So I say, God, I just put my eyes back on you. So for me, it's helpful to try to do that. I literally try to picture the face of Jesus. And he's good with that with me. I'm kind of a visual person in that sense. So I see Jesus and I just go, I'm going to put my eyes back here. I'm just going to put my eyes back on you. And then I just stay in peace. So you have to build your capacity for that too.
So you can start with 60 seconds.
Yeah. Start with a minute or two.
Uh-huh.
And then grow your capacity.
Uh-huh.
And
let God grow your capacty, right?
Yeah,
in those moments. But you push too.
You're partnering.
Right? Yeah. You're saying like, okay, I had a thought. Let me try a little bit. God's not opposed to effort.
No, he's
right. Sometimes we think he
calls
is.
Us to effort.
We are. We're called to strain and press on. And yeah.
So back in the garden, I feel like the whole idea
everything goes back to the garden and the tabernacle.
Well, the garden first. Tabernacle is the garden, just a different version. But like, no, but we were meant to co-create with God. We were meant to be with him.
Yeah.
And do all of these things. So like we're co-creating prayer too. We are participating in the place of communicating with God. It's not just him talking.
Yeah.
It's like, Lord, I'm gonna bring my heart to you.
Yeah.
I'm gonna listen to your heart.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that's what I do. So I start there, and there's a variety of other things. I try to do things that bring beauty.
What does that mean? This is in the solitude space?
Well, after I get through that time, I will do one of a couple of things. Either I'll read things that inspire me. So from other writers who have walked a Christian walk, maybe it's something about that I'm currently into, like revival stuff, or something on prayer, or revival history to me is so fascinating. And I just
imagine like something I'm into, revival, like the automotive section. I had this picture in Giant Eagle of the magazines, and then the revival section.
Well,
like
that's different. So there
reading.
are those things that I love. Like I also just love, so I'm an English major, like,
Yeah.
And I love poetry. Mm-hmm. I love to write. I love to read. And so sometimes, and I have friends that look at photography.
So this isn't just devotional book.
No,
this
not
is
always.
Sometimes it's what God is using to feed your soul.
I think
kind of
that you can say that there's so many difficult things that we see in life that you have to restore beauty in all kinds of ways, so that you don't just get dragged down by all of the difficult things around you and all the intensity.
Notes right now.
So I just restore beauty in ways that means for me. And sometimes it's just thinking about even stuff with my kids, but I love looking at beautiful things. And so sometimes those pictures, those things like that. And then I'm always going to do something in the Word.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's less than others, right? So again, I don't feel like people should beat themselves up about this either.
So you don't have a goal, the Bible in 6 weeks.
That stresses me out. The Bible in a year stresses me out. And I may be saying like a horrible thing, but like I feel like you're trying to race through the Bible, and I'm such a chewer. Meditation means chewing, right?
The Bible should be racing through us more than we should be racing through the Bible.
Yes, that's good.
Like really?
That's good.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to just walk through and retain anything. So I try to find Jesus when I'm reading the Bible. Something about my relationship with him or who he is. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm running through to get through content, then it begins to feel like a checkbox for me. And so I have to kind of land in the place of Psalm 1 where I'm chewing, I'm meditating on the word. And
you're planted by the river.
Yeah, exactly. And so the Lord does his thing. That's when it comes alive for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the word. I don't really, I'm in a season where I'm not journaling as much, but you can add that into your space. And then, but there'll be a time typically where I will ask God, like, is there something you want to say to me today?
Mm-hmm.
What's on your heart, God, today? Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just like that. Like, it doesn't have to be, I need direction or I need wisdom, or it's just what's on your heart today, God. And so,
and it's okay to ask for specific contextual.
It is.
Because here's where I wanted to get with this. This is very important. So the Project 167 podcast is all about those three big areas that I feel like the Lord has placed on my heart, right? Our relationships, which is marriage, our parenting, and then work. This practice, this sort of like being with God to start our day, giving him first dibs. I love that phrase. Yeah. Like, what could that do to all three of those areas of our life?
Yeah, I mean, that's how I get through life. Because otherwise...
Because you're in all three of those areas.
Yeah,
you're married, you have kids, and you work.
Yeah, and a different season of all of those too, and those look different. But I do want to say something to parents that I think is really important.
This is the place to do that.
Even though you're in a season that's more difficult to maybe find some of this. I'm also, my kids, I'm an empty nester, so I do have a little bit more time and space and down the road approach to life than I had when I was there. But I still think that there is a place where you need to find. It's not like can you, it's like have to, if we're going to really move out of the place of God's strength, God's vision for our family, and whatever you're doing at your workplace. If you're going to impact the culture and impact for the kingdom, you have to know what the kingdom is, and it's more than a concept, it's a relationship. So
that's a little bit where I was pointing to in the sermon about, like, do we really believe that apart from him we can do nothing? And it's that abiding. It's that being with, so apart from me, parenting is going to be really hard. Apart from me, marriage is going to be really hard.
We say like
leadership,
like marriage and family, parenting is humbling.
Yeah, it is.
Because true humility to me is all about knowing my need for God.
That's it.
So I am I was desperate as a parent. There were times where I was so exhausted, and so I didn't know what to do. Your kids wander into things, and you're like, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. Your kids right now are texting each other. It was you.
Kids,
it was you that caused her that pain.
There's only two of them, so guess which one I'm talking. No, thanks.
You have awesome sons. They're wonderful.
I mean, honestly, the blessing of the Lord. He probably knew what I could handle or what I could. But still, everybody has stuff, and your kids encounter, even if it's just like the difficult things that are coming at them at school, coming at them through friendships or through competition or whatever it is.
Or sometimes even through decisions they've made.
Yes.
I see that with our kids.
Yep.
Like, oh, man, sometimes we make the bed that we're lying in. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know. And you hate for them to go through that.
It's so hard.
You're like, you want to pull them out of it. And it's like, God, those are the moments for me. How do I pray the hard prayer of a mom that wants to shield my child from everything and yet know, God, I need you to give me wisdom, and I need you to talk to me right now, because I want to reach in and go be a mama bear and rip them out of this situation, or go yell at some teacher because whatever. And yet, God, what's gonna be the thing for them, where they need to grow, where they need to grow courage, where they need to lean into their own strength a little bit, and you, where can I trust your protection? Like, stuff like that grew me up a lot. Parenting, there's nothing like it that will grow you if you let it.
Yeah.
Or you can resort to, I'm going to control it and ask God to bless it.
Like, I really don't believe that apart from you, I can do this myself.
Yeah. I got this.
Yeah, I've got this.
Yeah.
It is a humbling thing. We were both at a gathering for Pittsburgh Praise, that greater movement, that call to be united and connected in prayer for Pittsburgh. On the way in, there was a young couple, and I was walking with Bishop Zubik. So we were chatting, and I've gotten to meet with him. Wonderful.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Wonderful man. And this young couple, Bishop Zubik said, "Now, how long have you guys been married?" And they said, the gal said, 5 months. And he goes, "Oh, that's wonderful. Da, da, da." He goes, "What have you learned so far?" She goes, "Marriage, 5 months. Oh, it is sanctifying." And I just piped up from behind her. I said, "Wait till you're 5 years in, not 5 months in." Like, if you think sanctified at 5 months, and then throw kids into the mix, right?
Here's my favorite line.
It does change you.
From Jerry Maguire. Remember that movie?
Yes.
Tom
I don't know if
Cruise.
we can endorse that on this pod. I'm just kidding.
Sorry, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying this line was good.
Yes, yeah.
When he goes, "Representing you is like a pride swallowing siege." And I'm like, this is marriage.
I forgot that. It is a pride swallowing.
A pride swallowing siege, because there's always an opportunity to go, I'm walking in pride. I'm walking in control.
And how are we ever going to know that if we don't have this space? So bringing it full circle back to, I know there are seasons of life where it's easier and seasons of life where it's harder. I think we need this in all seasons of life.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting at.
Yeah. So I think one of the fundamental issues that I just see, so I'll come at it here from a different angle. I see that a lot of people have Christianity as a part of their life. So I'm going to live over here. I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of Jesus into
and I'm also Christian.
My life. And yet that really is not an effective way to do either Christianity or marriage and family and have the outcome that your heart really desires, which is people that walk with God, that are living life in a beautiful way, that bring the kingdom of God. That's what we're meant to do. Like, we are not meant to just have a family here. And I think sometimes we get a little short-sighted and we focus so much on that. That's why control comes in. That's why fear comes in, because we're really just focused on that more than anything else. So that's why this place develops the vertical space with God. That actually is the place where my heart desires to be first. And then he changes me to be a mom that I need to be. He changes my perspective. He changes my heart on life. But it has to be him first. And then the rest of my life will fall in line with who he is.
Yeah, the order of your life is going to determine and shape the order in your life.
Yeah. But if you don't have prayer times and spaces with God, imagine your marriage.
So are Sundays not enough? I feel like that's what you're saying.
I know. Okay, your sermons are amazing. That might be enough for me.
They're not.
They're not.
They're not.
Nobody's preaching. It's your time with God. Okay, so we're so good about grabbing a lot of content. We know what to do. We know the rules. We know, but
I've actually said this before. Do we actually need more sermons?
probably not.
I think we need to step into this space, the abiding space, and then the trusting. And
that's what he said.
And doing
Apart
space.
from me, you can't do anything. You're saying it here.
Right.
That Jesus doesn't lie.
No.
So what does that mean then?
Mm.
Apart from me, you can do no thing. Nothing. So God, then I have to begin to develop the relationship, and not with church, not with people in my small group. Those are all good and they are necessary for the whole picture. But if you don't have it with Jesus and you don't have time, so if you're with your wife and you say, Brooke, I'm going to give you 10 minutes in the morning as I'm doing some other things. I'll multitask and we'll talk. And when I get home, I'm exhausted. So let's just sit and consume something together. We're in the same room, but we're not communicating. What happens to your intimacy level?
It's thin. It's shallow.
I mean, it's the same with God. And we all say that, like it's the relationship, it's the same, but it actually is. Like if you don't build with God, you have a thin relationship.
Yeah.
That thin relationship does not root you where you need it, where you need to be what God's asking you to be and what you need to be for your family and for your job place or whatever. Or whatever. And just for him.
For your husband.
For your husband,
right? Because this shapes marriage. Marriage is this effort of surrender, of submitting to one another, of trust and control. If you've taken Marriage Matters, that's a big one. Yeah. This helps in that space. It drives that. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Yeah. And the good thing is it's not like Jesus is leaving us out there saying, so good luck, but he's saying like, with me, look what you can do. Well, like there's fulfillment there.
Because
there's
they're
fruit.
Deeper roots. So much of our stuff with our spouse, even our kids, they're rooted in something else, So when I'm picking up offense all the time, when I'm bitter about something, when I'm constantly comparing how other families are and my kids, that there's a root of something there that I need to look at. Yeah. It's not that.
Does God ever lead you to repentance in this morning space?
Sure.
Shows you some of those roots?
Yeah. I mean, so, we have this little thing called freedom prayer, and that's taught me a lot more about forgiveness and repentance.
Hey, why are people we're going to spin in another direction. Why do you think there's so much, I have encountered apprehension, and I've promoted freedom prayer. I've experienced it. I talk about it a lot, and it's wonderful. A lot of people are experiencing it, but I've also sensed some apprehension when it comes to that thing.
Do they tell you why?
I'm asking you why, if you know why.
Yeah, I mean, I have ideas, but I wonder.
What are your ideas? What do you think the apprehension is?
I mean, it's a vulnerable space, and people bringing vulnerability. I think we have a lot of secrets. We hide a lot of things, just like in the garden. It always comes back to the garden.
I mean,
but when we keep our sin in secret places, the shame just continues to build and bringing things out into the light. God says when we confess our sins to one another, that's when we get freed. Yeah. That's when we get healed. So like we have to be able to talk about it. And I actually think this is where, back to the Catholics, I think there's a built-in to the DNA of confession is that piece of, I got to say it out loud to somebody. Oh. And it's much harder than being in a corner by myself and saying, I'm sorry, Jesus. Like I've got to be accountable for it, and I've got to verbalize it. And I think that's hard for people. I also think it's painful because you're touching on wounds that have been embedded in people for a lifetime many times.
Yeah, and it's sometimes you've probably learned to cope and cover and not have to feel that pain. I also think one of the apprehensions I've encountered is folks are like, well, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not in any hard season. I'm not in difficulty. I'm not mourning. I'm good. Yeah. What would you say to that apprehension? Is it just for when life's a mess and you're struggling?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Freedom prayer has multiple beautiful pieces to it. It is for moments of struggle, but it really is more about how do I bring God into every space of my life and have him speak to places that are not allowing me to be as free and as full of a person in the purpose that he's asking me to run in. So in other words, I may not be like in a huge sin pattern, or I may not be like, oh gosh, I cry all the time, or I can't have friendships, or I can't, whatever. Yeah. But when you get underneath, when you actually come into the space, the very first thing we do is just be with God. This is the first line for many people. I think there's a lot of people that think I generally know that God's here because he's present, but I've never felt or heard the voice of God.
Haven't experienced that.
I hear people
thing.
talk about that,
Yeah.
but I don't know really what that means.
Yeah.
So the encounter space of getting with God and having a little team of people sort of facilitate the process of being with God.
Just help you with that.
They help you because we
Prompt
don't know
you.
how.
Yeah.
Lots of people don't know how. And so,
and they're not doing it for you, but
No.
they're just kind of leading you to say, like, they'll ask questions.
yeah.
They'll say, hey, let's try praying this way, or let's,
Yeah.
it's a gentle, safe, cool
these
moment.
are the most honoring people. And they just honor the process and you. And they're very, very loving. And they love God. So these are safe people. You come in and you go through that process because we believe that it's very difficult to achieve authentic healing that sustains without it actually coming from God. We can pray for each other. We can say some good advice, but without God saying it, without him being the prime mover, it's likely to not last for you, or you'll walk out and go, nice prayer. Like, how many times have you had people pray over you in your life and you're like, oh, that was awesome. And then it just doesn't stay. You don't remember what they spoke over you. You're not really sure what happened. But when you encounter God, it's a whole different story.
Yeah.
You know, so when he does things that nobody else could have known that, said it, done it. I know that sort of happened to you a little bit in your freedom prayer session. And then you're like, this was real.
Yeah, you have different wind in your sails at that moment.
It's unbelievable.
It's like strong wind. If you guys are looking for that quote at the beginning of this podcast, I think that was it. It's very hard to experience authentic healing that lasts unless it comes from God.
Yeah.
So that was a Mary Mercer mic drop moment. How about
Can I do
alliteration?
that?
No, you don't want to drop these mics. I think they cost some money.
No, I mean, so freedom prayer. So then if you're in a place where maybe you do have an issue, great. But for many people, they're very unaware of the things that are actually bubbling up underneath the surface of our life. And it comes out in things like, why am I angry about stuff?
Yeah, so our stress in parenting isn't just how our kids are responding or doing in life. Some of the stuff we're carrying.
Absolutely.
Some of our woundedness, some of our...
we hate to pass. So that's another reason to get free.
It's easier if it's all them, right? Because then I just be a better parent and everything will be better. There's so much out of your control with the parenting, but this is the stuff that actually is in our grasp and grips.
Gosh, and when I started learning about this, I had to go to my kids and say, I need to ask your forgiveness. I'm sorry for some of the things I said that I didn't realize, when I was parenting my kids, like how impactful it would be for me to say something like, why are you so lazy?
Yeah.
Like you never listen, whatever the thing is, you know what I'm saying? We say these things, and if we say them enough, or we say them with conviction, it marks our kids. And
it can be an identity they assume. Yeah.
Usually is, not
Yeah.
can be.
Yeah. I was trying to be safe.
They pick up a whole lot of things from us. I did.
Oh, we all do.
You know what? My dad was the hero of my entire life. There isn't another person who spent time, all the things, all the love. But there were a couple of things that I felt I wasn't measuring up in, and it marked me. And it's something, it left sort of a rejection wound. And so I had to really work through a space of rejection. So I feel like if there's something wrong in your marriage, if there's consistent threads that you find through your life that keep popping up, we owe it to our kids to seek freedom, because we will surely pass it on to them.
Because you're going to continue to perpetuate it.
That's right.
Even in their adulthood, right?
That's
Talk
right.
about that dad-daughter relationship.
Oh, gosh.
Man, I love my daughter. We have this
It's the best.
really beautiful connection and relationship. Connection's like a weird word. Man, I love her. There's a special dad-daughter. I've been taught about the love of a father to their daughter is so important, because if there's a strong intimacy there, like a beautiful, healthy intimacy, they're not going to go searching for it in all the other areas of life, dating and sometimes giving their bodies away. Can you just speak to that? Because the way you talked about your dad, I'm like, that's how I want and hope my daughter looks and sees to me. But it's hard because I know I'm not perfect at it.
Yeah, my dad was the guy in the room that made everybody feel amazing. The conversation was always rich. The affirmation was so
was he a life of the party,
abundant,
outgoing?
Yes, I mean when he died, I mean everything changed because he was, he was the air in the room.
It's like a light went out. Yeah.
And we spent a lot of time because I am from a family of 5 kids, and I'm the youngest and the only girl. So it was
so you're like Mila.
It was a daddy's little girl.
Yeah.
But more.
Yeah.
So
nobody's more than Mila.
That's true.
I'll never let you.
I don't
I'm
mean
just
more
kidding.
that way. More people in the mix.
Yeah, bigger family.
So by the time it got to me, it was like I finally got a girl.
Yeah.
And that was pretty cool for him. But there was the singing Daddy's Little Girl. There was a song Scarlet Ribbons.
Okay. I don't know.
And it's
that
like this song about this dad that all his daughter wanted was scarlet ribbons, and he went from every store at one night when she wanted them, night before her birthday, and he's searching out and he's dejected because all the stores are closed. And he goes, he walks in the house. I peeked in, and on her bed, I'll never know from where they came, but there was scarlet ribbons for her hair, like all over.
Oh my gosh.
It was so beautiful. And so he used to sing that to me every night.
That, yeah.
And then every day when he came home from work, he would have a block of cheese, and we would sit. He would read the newspaper to me, and we would talk about our days eating cheese. So cheese is like my lifeblood.
Yeah.
Because it was what my dad did with me.
Yeah.
And the value that he placed on me from an early age, it has allowed me not only to have those things you talked about, not to need that, but also God the Father. I have had the blessing of never having to question the love of God the Father. That's not true for a lot of people,
it's not.
Sadly. But it is a pivotal place to get to in your faith journey. And so if you have issues with your father, or he wasn't there, there was abuse, neglect, or just things said to you that should have never been said to you, then it's hard to hear other things from the Father in heaven.
Right.
And that's terribly destructive to a relationship with God. So to me, this is another piece of, again, back to freedom prayer. But
I was just going to ask that.
Looking at those places and then receiving the truth from God, because no matter what anyone said to you, it's not what God would say if it's judgmental, guilty, guilt-producing, shame-producing, or unkind. Yeah. It's not God.
It doesn't line up with the Father.
No, or
no
the Bible.
Condemnation. Right.
So we know the character of God, and so how do I get to that place?
But freedom prayer will help you believe the character of God.
That's right.
It's one thing to know it; it's another thing to trust it and live based upon it. Are you ready for that Catholic question?
Come on, bring it.
I can't forget this. So this might put you on the spot, right?
Okay.
Earlier in the podcast, I did. We shot the Behind and Beyond podcast, so cross promotion. Shout out to Behind and Beyond. I brought up that So I talked about Lent. I talked about fasting, which is prayer with your body. So if anybody's wondering, so what made you choose Mary? Prayer, fasting, prayer with your body, love conversations with Mary. What does the word Lent mean? I talked about it. I know it refers to the 40 days, but do you know the significance? You might not know, but you are one of my resident experts when it comes to Catholicism.
I don't know the actual word. Okay. I just know the actual process of, I think people just think of these things. I'm a church calendar person.
Mm-hmm.
I love the church calendar because I love the rhythms of God, and it reminds me, it's remembering the story.
Helps you remember,
So when you go through all of the early phases after Christmas and the baptism of Jesus and all of the things, then you get into this place where Jesus' ministry, and then into here we're walking towards Easter. And so I want to prepare myself. It's a John the Baptist moment of preparing the way of the Lord. So Lent is that. It's preparing my heart, preparing my mind, and even my body, because fasting is sometimes involved, or whatever things we give up. People give that a bad rap. Dude, that's a cool thing to do, because I'm saying no to one appetite to open an appetite for more of God. And that to me is a beautiful thing to do. It's a sacrificial space. And so
absolutely.
Lent
and it physicalizes it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Lent is the place where John said, prepare the way of the Lord. He's coming. The Lamb is coming. So we physically do
Behold,
that.
Behold, the Lamb of God, right? You're calling it out. Yeah.
And so, and then, of course, Jesus on the cross, you want to unite. Paul said, I want to know him in the fellowship of his sufferings. There's Jesus going through the temptations in the desert. There's Jesus on the cross. There's these places where we connect with the difficult spaces of Jesus, and we share the load with him, and we try to understand, what does it mean, God, that I share in your sufferings? What does it mean that I'll carry this cross with you? and walk into a space where I'm willing to do some things for a greater thing, which is having you. Because when we sacrifice for Jesus, we always get him in return. And that's a beautiful thing to me. He goes, I honor that. You've talked about gifts.
Yeah.
He rewards those who diligently seek him or who give on his behalf. So not that we do it for that transaction, but I'm going to do anything to get more of Jesus. That's my heart.
Do you remember that song, How He Loves?
Yeah.
It was the Sloppy Wet Kiss song.
Yeah.
That
or some say there's another lyric for it.
Unforgotten.
Heaven meets with an unforeseen something.
Unforeseen kiss.
Yeah.
I think that was it. Yeah. That was like the
Amy likes Sloppy Wet Kiss.
That was the PG version sung in churches. Either way, there's a lyric in there. He is my portion. We are his prize. So I wonder, how do we capture more of that, that desire? I hear that. I preview or listen to a little bit of your sermon, your message from the well. I don't know what to call it. Talk. What would you call it? Sermon?
You're bigger on this than me.
What
do you call it?
It was a sermon.
It was a word from the Lord.
20 minutes in. Yeah, it was your word from the Lord at the well. And this idea that Jesus as our portion, that's like enough. That's what nurtures. The gifts are beautiful. The blessings are byproducts, but just how do we recapture that longing just for a more portion of Jesus?
So Lent, fasting, those things help to do that, because what we're trying to do is refocus on him. So when I put my attention on Jesus, this is what I had mentioned in the sermon. It's hard to measure it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's not like one day I decide to do this and all of a sudden I have more of a portion.
I have 4 liters of Jesus.
Yeah, I got to understand it first.
Yeah.
The fact that I am Jesus's inheritance, that we, the bride, the church, that's his prize. That's crazy. I mean, we always think of it the other way, like he's my prize, but no, like we are the prize, and the Father's like, I'm picking this bride for you, and she's beautiful. This is the
joy
gift that
set
you get
before him.
Yes,
unbelievable.
That's us. We're the joy.
Us. Yeah.
So, but also he is ours.
Right.
We are made for God.
Yeah.
There isn't another reason we were put here. When you bear it all down, he wanted relationship. He made us out of love for relationship with him. That's where we started. That's where we're going back.
It was that way in the garden. It was that way in the Gospels.
Be there in the end.
It'll be that way in the end.
So it's important to go, this is the number one priority, is the relationship with God. So how do I shore up? I take time. I do the things. They're not check boxes. It's how do I keep my eyes on God?
Yeah.
And see, this is why beauty is important. I have to restore beauty, awe, wonder of God in my life. And we don't see Jesus as beautiful. Have you ever? Sunset's beautiful. A mountain is beautiful, but do I equate that with Jesus?
Yeah, like today is a beautiful
Gorgeous.
day.
Yeah.
It's like 60 degrees.
Yes.
We've earned this day. It feels like it because we've lived 1,000 days of winter.
Yeah.
But that's a reflection of his beauty, and it should cause us to look and reflect on him.
It should.
Yeah.
It should.
And it can.
He's beautiful.
Right?
Yeah. It's mindset. It's what's your lens. Do you see it like that? Do you want to see it like that? And I say we have not because we ask not. So God, if I'm not hungry for you and I don't see you like that, you have to do that work in me.
Yeah.
Show me, God, your beauty. David said it. David goes, there's one thing I ask. I want to dwell in the house of the Lord and I want to see his beauty.
Yeah.
That's
Psalm
what he said.
27?
27:4. I want to be with him.
Yeah.
And I want to see his beauty. That's what he wants. It's the same thing Jesus was praying for in John 17. Father, I desire for them to be with me and for them to see my glory. And isn't that what happened when Jesus came to this earth, when he says, and the Bible says in John 1, the word became flesh, he dwelt among us, and we have seen his glory. That's the plan of God. Like he wanted to be with us. That's why the garden and the tabernacle, wink, wink, places where God dwells with us, and we're meant to see who he is. That's the first line. So developing the relationship with God, once you stare at him, 2 Corinthians says that if we look on him, we'll be transformed into the image. Once we start looking at Jesus, we become like Jesus. That's when we do what Jesus did, and his mission becomes our mission.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Can I ask another probing question?
Yeah.
This is like how are we on time, guys? Are we okay? The production booth over there, they're doing awesome. Carlo and my guy Jordan. This is probably loaded question. So I
love.
I feel like the Spirit is leading me to do this. Okay. Why do some people hold back? Why do you think some people after a service have needs for prayer but don't come forward for prayer? What's going on there? What's the struggle there? Because I think we've talked about this. We've wrestled through this. But I'm just, what do you think? What do you think's hard about that?
I think that's multiple things. I think first, on a very base level, it's hard to stand out. I don't want people to think I want to stand out anything.
Yep.
But I think the deeper root of that is I'm not really sure he answers prayers. I don't know that I have the relationship in the sense where I really believe what he says about prayer, or that I really think he's going to hear me. Sometimes there's a worthiness issue. I don't think he cares. Like, I know a lot of people that will say Jesus sort of put everything in motion, but this kind of thing down here, it's about my decisions and being captain of my own ship, and he's not really that involved in the personal moments.
Yeah,
I think that's a pretty common mindset. Like, I don't think he gets in the details of my life, so I'm not sure I believe in prayer as an outcome. So those are some thoughts.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think it's good to acknowledge this stuff and speak to it. I'm not going anywhere with that, but
this is the reason for me why the personal relationship with Jesus is the key. It's the door, the face-to-face, the intimacy with God. It's the door to everything else, because if you don't have that, prayer makes no sense, because prayer is about the relationship. Yeah. If you don't,
I think sometimes I've found that you and I are often saying very similar things, but we use different words for those things.
So how would you say it?
So I often, and this is not corrective.
No,
I'm just because you and I were talking about Jesus and gospel, and I'm like, I think they're the same thing. Like, presence is a big word for me. I want to experience his presence, spend time in his presence, and that's where everything flows from that. And that's you're talking about intimacy directly with him. I'll often talk about the presence of God. There's nothing greater than the presence of God. I'm just acknowledging that. I agree with you wholeheartedly.
So I'd love to say something to that, though.
Yeah.
When people come into these places of prayer, I'm praying with people in multiple ways. The most common thing I hear is like, if I'll say, do you sense the presence of God right now? And they'll go, well, sure, God is everywhere. He's always with me.
A general.
That's true.
Yeah, it is true. Omnipresent. Yeah.
But there's a difference in when I personally experience his presence, as in I feel something, I might hear, I might get a sense of something, whatever that looks like, the manifest presence. God manifests himself, makes himself known in a real way in the room. It's not like, sure, he's here. It's like, man, I feel the weight of God's presence. And so
there's an experience to it.
That's
not
the
just a knowledge.
Experience. And without that experience, I just think that the relationship with God will not grow. And I don't mean every minute, but you have got to have an encounter space.
It'll feel stalled out.
Because it doesn't get personal into your gut.
Right.
Until you encounter and experience something with God. Otherwise, it's all in your head. And Paul said, I'm praying that they know him beyond this kind of knowledge and into a space of intimate knowledge, understanding who God is really for me. I want something real. And I think that's what people are really hunting for right now, especially Gen Z, Gen Alpha. I want the real thing.
Longing for authenticity.
Tired of playing church.
Sick of imitation.
I want
sick
the real
of overhype.
Thing.
Overhyped out and underdelivered. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so I want the real thing too. I
do
mean,
too. Yeah.
I've been in days where I feel like I don't know if any of this is real. Like, I want you to know that's real too. The enemy will mess with you a little bit and go, that wasn't real, that wasn't true. I understand. And sometimes I just feel like God isn't understanding what I'm asking, or he's not paying attention, or I'm not feeling seen. And so know that those are real too, and they don't mean you're not spiritual and you don't have a relationship. There are just times when it looks different, but I'm rooted in the fact that this is what I know about God. It doesn't matter what I feel. I love to feel things.
That's where you need knowing and experiencing.
That's right.
And then sometimes trusting just simply by following.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to root yourself in the
There's
truth.
a plug for the mission statement if you didn't
no
catch
experience
that.
Follow. Let's go. But you can't have one. You cannot miss those pieces.
You need all three.
You got to know.
And
know
working
more
together.
More than just intellectually. The knowledge of God and the experience of God. And that will change who you become.
Yes.
It will. That will allow you to follow. Yeah. Like I think sometimes.
Empower you to follow.
I think we put the cart before the horse sometimes, like go do. But without this piece, I honestly believe that won't sustain either. Because it's really, now we can learn a lot from going and serving. It breaks our heart. It will not sustain forever unless it's rooted in the relationship with God. Because he's the driver of making me become and helping me become who I'm meant to be.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I can't do this on my own.
Yeah.
Same problem as we talked about from the beginning.
Yeah.
So.
You're an awesome guest here.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah.
Are we done?
I appreciate you. I mean, about to land a plane. I was just kind of signaling that.
That was fast.
I don't even know how long it was. I think it was good. Feels like this is like a natural landing spot. Thanks so much for your heart, for your ministry here at Northway, for the well, for freedom prayer, for response prayer after services, everything you're doing in so many ways. Thanks for your friendship too.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I want to say something to our family.
Yeah.
Our Northway family.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I just feel like something's welling up.
The church fam. Yeah.
Like I've been here on staff for 8 or 9 years, and I've watched a lot. I've prayed a lot for the people here, and I have such a deep love for this group of people. It's not just Wexford; it's expanding too, because that was my place for a long time.
That's where you started
as discipleship director.
Yeah,
but I want you to know that I see there's something here that I believe God is doing right now in our church. He's doing it in multiple places around our nation. It feels like a fresh move of God, but I do feel like we have this open door right now. And so I'm just saying to everybody, like, I don't want God to pass us by in that. You know, I want us all to lean in. We're praying, we're caring, we love this church, we love our family, and we're committed to this place with our family.
Yeah.
But like, we need everybody to just go, I need to open my eyes a little bit more to what God is doing and begin to take that in a whole new way, because I think there's a new wineskin. There's a fresh move of God. Like, I don't know what that looks like. That's not for me to build. But I'm excited about what he's doing through the younger people in our church.
Yeah.
I really am. It is going to be like, I trust our future with them. But I just see exciting things for us. So I hope that encourages somebody's heart to go like, there's more than what you're experiencing with God. Go after it, because it's opening a door to something new for all of us, not just me, you, whatever. All of us have a new space that God's doing. So I'm excited for what that might look like.
It's wonderful. I think that's a great landing encouragement for Project 167 today. Mary, awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Love you. Glad you're here. Thanks everybody for being here with us. We'll see you next time.